YouTube, we are back for another one. It is day 5 of the 3-day split series. We're on the B part of the 3-day split, which means we've got leg day, also known as leg yay. With this one, going to be a very similar format to the original leg day that was in the first 3 videos, but instead of it being a bit more quad focused with our primary exercises, it's going to be a little bit more hamstring focused, and that's essentially how I like to switch those 2 days on. We'll have a little bit more glute in here today, a little bit more hamstring, and still some quads, still some calves, still some adductor work and things like that, but a little variety of exercises compared to our other leg day session. So the eagle-eyed people amongst you will realize that there's only 2 leg days in this 3-day split, so it's kind of an upper lower upper off. Again, a push focused upper, more of a pushed focused leg day, then a back focused day, so more of a pull focus, and then we switch it push focused vertically, so shoulders, a pull focused leg day, and then a pull focused back day, and that completes our 3-day split video. So we've got one more left after this one, which is kind of sad, honestly, thinking about it. I've enjoyed making this series so far, so I think I'll start making some other ones with different splits. But again, the formulation of the exercises and things like that, the key part is just a little bit of variety to expose us to different intensities, different positions and stuff like that, but also keeping the consistency in terms of volume, number of exercises, the number of sets, and the intensities. So that's kind of my common themes with leg day. We don't skip leg day on this channel by any means, and it's an area I want to work on and grow, especially as I've had quite a few hamstring strains in the past. So hamstrings are a primary focus for me whenever I'm doing my own personal training programming, and we'll see today how it is pretty brutal, if I'm being honest, in terms of the hamstring work that will get done. So as always, we'll see you in the gym. Make sure you stick around, watch the whole video, because maybe it'll inspire you within your own workouts how to formulate a leg day, how to do it within the 3-day split, and how to do it as a B day within your 3-day split. So we'll catch you in the gym. We are back for a good little leg day session. So we have a pretty simple warm-up with this one, getting ready for some deadlifts. So we get 2 benches, we're going to do some bridges, some isometric holds, and then get some like eccentric glute bridge in, hip thrust in, whichever one you want to call it. So nice and easy. We hold for 10 seconds, single leg on each side. And then we just switch in sides. So I always like isometric work. I'm actively pushing down as I'm extending the hip here as well. So get a nice isometric contraction of those hamstrings, ready to do some pulls off the ground. We can change our different leg positions, so where the heel is, we can go shorter, we can go longer. I like to progressively get a little bit longer as the reps go on. Okay, and then get some eccentric work in. Nice and easy, 5 reps. So you
can also add some cardio in at the start of this. I walked from the parking lot quite a fair distance, so I classified that as being my temperature raiser, but you can do treadmill, elliptical, things like that. You can also do 2 rounds of this. I'm a little bit short on time today, so I'm trying to keep this session under an hour. So just 1 round, feeling pretty good. We're going to move into deadlift, and we're going to do a cluster warm-up. So one of the main things we're trying to achieve with the cluster warm-up is we keep the rep ranges low, deliberately having more than 2 reps left in the tank, so 2 plus. So do 3 or 4 reps. The aim is speed on the concentric phase, a controlled eccentric, and then you're building up to your working load, but you're also using a little shorter rest period. So rather than doing a warm-up set of 12, and a warm-up set of 10, warm-up set of 8, instead we make that warm-up a little bit more intense. We focus on speed on the lighter loads, and then that way we can also get some grip stuff in, we can get our legs activated, we can get our external potentials firing at a higher rate. So then when we hit our working sets, we haven't done a shit ton of volume before getting there, and a little bit of residual fatigue will be more metabolic because of our shorter rest periods. So then we just give ourselves a longer rest period, and then we should be feeling better. Allows the blood to pool into the muscle and then flush out as well. So no straps, 4 reps, nice and easy. Not using a belt today. And then we use that rest period to change our weights and up our. And then once we get closer to working weight, we take a little longer rest period, so up to about 45 seconds. So then we actually get some recovery in. We also take a couple of reps off. So I'll do 3 reps instead of 4. And then when we find that we're kind of in that 3 or 4 IIRR, so reps in reserve, that's when we know where we're at for our working weight for the day. Because then we should, in that working set, be able to get that 6-8 range that we're aiming for. One thing I think people are going to find with deadlifting, the limiting factor is grip. So in that warm-up set, I'm hitting 2 reps. I definitely had the 3rd for my lower body, but my grip started to give out. So that's where straps come in. So probably actually just stick at this weight and then treat that as working weight for. Strap coming undone. So as we're resting, we have 2 minutes rest. Normally I'll do 2 to 3 top end sets with this working weight, and then depending on the day, either go up a little bit, or where we're at today, where we're just hitting that 6 rep range. Grip seems to be a limiting factor later in the week for me, so normally I'll do 1 back off set as well, just to get a little bit higher volume in. Now, you probably notice I'm not using a belt. Right now, I don't have one in my bag. Typically use a lifting belt as well, just to feel a little bit more stable in my lower back and things like that. So again, the key here is we're just trying to get as close to failure as possible. I didn't try that 6th, 7th rep, I don't think, in that last set, but in my final set, I always try and push to failure, whether it's a back off set or whether it's a main working set. So I think we'll go one more working set at this weight, try and stay in the rep match zone. That was pretty good. Again, being on a cut, it's tough. It's definitely tough to push your intensities. Weights that are flying up during a bulk become your 6 rep max, which is always fun. So again, we got 2 minutes rest and then hit this last set. So one thing I'll say about deadlifting is a lot of people get concerned about feeling it in the lower back and not even realizing that it's a lower back exercise as much as it's a glute hamstring dominant exercise. So you're going to feel a little bit of those erectors working and things like that. Totally normal, as long as you don't have extreme pain and like sharp neural feedback, then you're going to be okay. Your back is going to adapt over time. So that's all of our deadlift sets done. Now we move into our squat pattern. All right, so next on the program, we got a slight exercise variation, which I don't think many people will do, but I like to program this in because it's the happy medium between a back squat or a safety bar back squat and the barbell front squat. So we actually do a front rack version of this exercise. So I like to do that because it distributes a little bit more load towards the quads rather than the glutes that you'll get when you're in your traditional back squat. And I always feel a little bit limited in terms of my shoulder flexion, wrist extension with the barbell front squat. So we just can't push that heavy of a load. So this offers the kind of nice in between because you can load it with a little bit more intensity than the front squat and you can get a little bit more of an upright trunk compared to the back squat. So you're going to hit those quads a little bit more directly, and we still get some core control in there as well, so some ab work and trunk stability and things like that. So again, we're actually going similar rep ranges to what we did with the deadlift. Now a little awkward to get into this one, as you got to pick the bar up, get underneath, and then give yourself a big hug. Easy as that. So we got 3 sets of this. So most people might not have access to the safety bar, so feel free to conventional squat in replace of this one. But if you do have the safety bar, check out that front rack because it's definitely a lot more anterior load and you can get generally a full depth squat with a little greater trunk angle. So anybody worried about their lower back and spinal loading and compression and things like that, this is the key exercise for that. So you'll probably remember from the first video that we did calf raises. So we treat calf raise as our third most primary exercise in this one, and then we switch back to hamstrings. So slightly different variation, kind of the bent over calf raise is still a straight leg. We focused today 2 legs, and we're actually going to stay in that bottom half of the range of motion, so the more lengthened position. So this day we do a bit more lengthened partial in terms of the actual calf loading, and then the other day we do more lengthened partial into eccentric. So less about full ROM today, more about lengthened partial for the calves. A little higher volume there as well, just for the sake of it. We'll go higher volume, and actually there's a little shorter rest period for this exercise, so we only go a minute between sets. And again, we're just trying to get as much blood flow into those calves as possible, get a little bit of that metabolic strain as well, so then we can get a little bit more mechanical overload. Everyone will dictate whether metabolic is worthwhile or not. What's up, big dog? How are you?
What's
Yeah,
good,
bro.
my dog?
For the YouTube right there. So again, the lengthened position I think is going to be the thing that stimulates our most. We'll get most of our mechanical strain there, but we can definitely go higher rep range unless I start adding plates to the stack, which we could do, but right now just going to full stack. Enough talking, more reps. All right, that is calf raises done. Ooh. All right, next we have the single leg hamstring curl. So with my hamstring curls, I like to have the seat forward just a little bit so we can get locked into position, get this nice and low, and then we're curling in here. So like some people care about this other leg getting in the way and stuff. You can pull it out to the side. It's a little bit harder when you've got the machine here. But honestly, it's less about the squeeze, I think, on this, more the control of the stretch. So I want to bump this up a little bit. Oh, that might be too much. And so just getting some reps to failure in here, nice and controlled. And the one thing I forgot is you want a slight forward lean with this, so you get a little bit of length at the hip for the hamstring as well. Whew. So we just had 2 sets of these. We got another minute 30 rest from that right side. Depending on the day and the equipment availability, I'll sometimes sub these out for Nordic hamstrings, but not all the time. So if you can get on the hamstring curl, I prefer those, but you can definitely get an effective dose in with Nordics as well. So that's as long as it's a hamstring curl based pattern. Prone hamstring curl can also work as well. So again, depends what you are into, what you've got availability with, and how you're feeling. And I sometimes feel like this machine is a little bit awkward and I wish I had an extra pad in here, but other than that, it's definitely good strain. I feel all my hamstrings working at the same time. So the good thing about going from a hamstring curl to a knee extension is when the machines are right next to each other, it's an easy transition from one to the next. And so kind of similar to our A day where we actually did this for the hamstrings, what we're going to do is single leg extension, and then once we hit failure and we got that like length and partial position, then we go 2 up, 1 down to get some extra eccentrics in there as well. So we're going to put a fairly decent load on for single leg, and then we start. So a good tip with these is to use your knee sleeves as protection for your shins when you're doing the leg extension, because this pad over time wears down, so it feels like there's like metal against your shins. So by using your knee sleeves, you're not going to get any benefit from having them up high, because actually it might limit some of the range of motion. You don't really need too much joint protection on this exercise, so put them down to your shins, and then that way it uses the pad as a little bit of extra cushioning, so it feels a bit more comfortable. So similar theme, we got 2 sets of this and then we're done with this exercise. So we'll move into this next one. Quad burn. All right, catch my breath, and we'll move into that left side. That's quads done, right there. So this is one of those exercises where I feel like there's a little bit of a profile against it, but I like to use it, just this or the cable version. Especially after we've just blasted quads, so we're getting a little bit of glute. You can definitely do the cable kickback as well. I just feel like, as a man, getting into the machine feels a little more appropriate. Not to say that you can't do cable kickbacks, but you don't really see many male bodybuilders utilizing that exercise very often. All right, finish your exercise. Similar to A-Day, we just finish on adductions. No abduction today. Again, we kind of run a little short on time, so we finish on this one. So we typically, if I'm trying to get some variation in, I might vary this exercise, do kind of more like a side plank, hip lower with one leg on a bench, or actually go to the cables and do some hip abduction, adduction, so kind of more like a leg swing type pattern. But again, because of the convenience of the machines, this works generally in the workflow, and if I see this machine open, it definitely isolates the adductors a lot better. Those other exercises, I think, are if I'm trying to add more of a stability demand to it with like the stance leg and things like that. But in terms of muscle isolation, this machine is probably the daddy, as it were. Or let's not say the daddy. This machine is one of the top tier ones in terms of targeting this muscle group. All right. our little saying. Last set, best set. We're gonna lean forward a little bit. That's it. Lift done. On leg day, sometimes I like to throw in Stairmaster at the end, so might hit a little 15-minute Stairmaster. Don't worry, there's not going to be that many conflicting energy system pathways and things like that. We're not going to lose all of our gains just by doing 15 minutes of low-intensity cardio at the end. Would I preferably want to split that up? Yeah, but we all have lives, we all get busy, and I want to do something later this evening instead of going on the Stairmaster for an hour. So once we've done that, we'll see you in the car.
So that was leg day. Super simple format. Again, we don't have to reinvent the wheel with what we're doing. 2 primary exercises, then accessory work focusing on the same muscle groups that were in the primaries, and then hitting some surrounding areas that we also targeted in our A block 3-day split as well. So super simple, effective, definitely a leg day that you can get some very decent muscle growth from. And again, nothing too complex. Probably a unique thing compared to what some people are used to in terms of exercise selection, going from more of a conventional barbell front squat to a safety bar front rack squat. That has become honestly my favorite free weight squat exercise, just because of comfort, the level of range of motion you can get. You can go full ROM, keep a more upright trunk, so we definitely get a little bit more quad load. So I think that is the perfect squat to put in terms of that pairing with the deadlift as the first primary exercise. So that's kind of where I think the science meets practice in a sense, because we know safety bar is generally a little bit more back friendly, lower back friendly, because you don't get as much of a hip hinge, and it also, with the front rack position, doesn't have any of the limitations that you get from having to hold shoulder extension, shoulder flexion and wrist extension within the barbell front squat, which limits the capacity of the loading that we can actually do. So it's the nice happy medium between a front squat position and a back squat position, which makes it a winner in my book. And I honestly don't see many people posting about it, and it's not that it's a gate-kept secret in terms of an exercise. It probably is because safety bars are not as common in commercial gyms as your conventional bars are. So if you don't have a safety bar, you could switch it up, use any of the conventional bars. Another option is actually using the hexagonal bar in your deadlifts and then making it a little bit more of a squat dominant pattern, so you can kind of superset that, in a sense, have a hinge based pattern and then have a more squat dominant pattern. But overall, safety bar front squat is definitely a S tier exercise for me. And then again, we use machines for the rest of that lift. We treat calves as a primary exercise, not as something that we just add on at the end, although today's session was a bit more volume focused for the calves. And then we blast our hamstrings again, single leg. We blast our quads like we did our hamstrings in A-Day. And so it makes for a perfect contrast of distributing your sets across the week. You get a good total set amount across your week as well. And we know from the current scientific literature that that total set volume is probably a bit more deterministic in terms of muscle growth than the actual frequency of us hitting quads. So we've hit it twice this week already. We'd have 3 more days before we actually get it again. So we've got our back day, we've got an off day, and then we'd have another push day before we hit legs again. So kind of every 4th day we're hitting quads, which I think is more than enough frequency to get, and sorry, every 4th day we're hitting legs, which I think is more than enough frequency to get enough volume in for muscle growth. So up on the agenda for the next session, tomorrow's session, is going to be a bit more of a pull back focused day. There is a little bit of chest and shoulders in there, biceps, and a small amount of triceps. So we kind of round off the week with a full upper body day, but primarily back focused. And then that's going to conclude our 3-day split across a 7-day period, which is kind of exciting. We're almost there. So if you've been following along, keep following. Make sure that you like, make sure you subscribe, and make sure you switch those notifications on so you get the next video when we release it. And more importantly, make sure you comment if you like the session format, if you've got any questions, or if you actually have some concerns with the way that we're distributing this split. I'd love to hear it, because I think that discussion is healthy. Nobody's wrong. We're all kind of wrong. Just some people are a little bit more right than others. So again, keep listening. We're keeping growing this community, and we'll see you on the next one.